Nick Walker shuts down the critics. Did he?
Wow.
Hey, everybody. Bob Chick back with another edition of the Voice of Bodybuilding, joined, as always, by the Hall of Famer himself, Sugar
Right.
Shawn Ray.
From California, where it's like 80 degrees in summer, mid-May.
Well, things are heating up on the pro circuit, Shawn. We got a lot to get to, so we're going to get right into it. New York Pro, I know we're a day or two late on on our coverage of it, so everybody knows what happened, but we're going to give our take on what went down. To nobody's surprise, Nick Walker went in there and listen, he looked good. I don't think he looked as good as Pittsburgh, but it was enough to win the show. But I want to circle back to Nick because we got a lot to talk about, of course, with him. Fifth place, we're going to go from bottom up, Shawn. Fifth place, Sasarati. Sasan has hit like 4 shows in a row now, so I got to give him credit. And I think he's going to be doing California coming up this week. Good or bad move?
No, it's a matter of attrition because the guys that were beating him are not coming to California. Nick won't be here. Derek won't be here. Martin won't be here. By
Right.
default, Sasan's like a second or third place guy, potential winner,
Right.
because I'm not sure if the list is out. If you have it, I'm sure you'll run it down. But
I
that's
do.
what happens when you have a string of shows that the kind of the second tier guys will find an opportunity to get to that Olympia. The problem I have, and this will fly right in the face of Milo Sarchev, our good friend, that
Lunatic.
well, yeah, the lunatic. The thing about it is, there's one thing if you haven't been there and you want to experience the Olympia, you do everything that you can to get to the Olympia. So this is his
Sure.
third bite at the apple, fourth bite at the apple. Potentially, none of those guys will be there. No one's jumping in that has a big name, but I think he's got to go through Regan Grimes. But he has a good shot at actually winning the Cal, and it's by default.
Well, and I got to give him credit for that because why not go in at this point? Like you say, pick up a check. He's placed in the money. He was fifth here, and like you just said, Regan Grimes, the only guy from New York that's going to be going to California. They were fourth and fifth, respectfully, so not a bad move. Regan Grimes, we did not see him in Pittsburgh. I thought that was a tactically bad move in terms of he could have brought what he was going to bring to the table, kind of honed it in, and then brought better to New York. But he started with New York. And what did you see, Shawn? I saw a slightly better Regan, but still one missing 100% by about 10 points.
Well, I'll disagree with you on the tactical part because if he gone to Pittsburgh, he's getting crushed. So he's wasting his time, contrary to what Milos would say. Stage experience is everything to somebody that's competed 100 times, and I think never won. But Reagan didn't need to be in Pittsburgh for that experience. Starting off in New York was a better play. Got a good look. You know, you didn't have the heavy hitter Derek in that mix. We always knew that going in that was Nick's show to lose. And with all the question marks surrounding Regan Grimes, will he show up? We had the same feeling sometimes about Reagan that we did about Cedric. Where and when
Good
will this
analogy.
guy? Yeah, where and when will this guy arrive? He didn't arrive in New York. Obviously, he wasn't up to par. He was bigger. I'm not sure if he was better than the time off, but he'll have a fair look in California because he won't have these other heavy hitters like William Bonac and Nick Walker to deal with. So he'll get a better opportunity to get a better look. Arguably the best shape out of the guys, even in New York, but he's still kind of a promise that's not been kept. I'm not going to keep making excuses for his age because, relatively speaking, myself, Kevin Lavroni, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Jake Cutler, we were all at the top of our game in our 20s. How old is Reagan Grimes now?
I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm going to guess late 20s.
Well, we can't keep making excuses for the age. Lee Haney retired at 31 with 8 Sandow trophies. So either you're going to arrive or you're not. California is a great place. Should he win there? The $1 million question would be, does he hang on and go to the Mr. Olympia? I think if I'm Sasan, since I'm doing all these other shows, if I qualify for the Olympia, I got to go just to get the experience, see what that's all about. If I'm Regan Grimes, I mean, you got to get it in your head. If you win the California, there's not a whole lot waiting for you in Las Vegas except being a pace car on a racetrack. He's been there
Well,
before.
but this is the reason, Shawn, that I thought it might be a good idea. Not that he was going to be a threat at Pittsburgh, but to get on stage, to get that experience, to get rid of the cobwebs. He's been off the stage for a year or so. To put in play prep again, whatever that thing is, because that seems to be where his problem is. So Well, it wasn't really more for the placing. He would have been competitive. Obviously, he would have been having a hard time knocking on fifth place there. But New York would have been his second show. He would have had another 6 days to bring that in a show that honestly he could have done very well or even won. I did see some improvements. He did have some parts. His hamstrings are crazy from the back. Great look, beautiful shape and symmetry and proportion, like we always talk about. Great physique, but he still needs to just dial it in. Will we see that in 6 days now until California? I hope so, because we could use some new talent out here. But speaking of new talent, Shawn, it was Kiso, who was probably the man of the hour in terms of his improvements. Did a little bit better, more relaxed on stage, brought more of what we saw at the NPC offices and those crazy shots that we saw. He ends up in third place, but his posing is so bad, and he's got some shoulder impingement problem because he can't hit a back double by to save his life.
Well, the good thing is he knows it. So he knows what he has to work on. It's one thing if you're doing all this stuff and you don't know what's wrong, what's holding me back, what do I have to do? Kiso knows what his problems are. He should be coming to California. I know it's a long run because he's such a big guy. Had he been in California, Kiso could have walked off with this title. I don't think he's going to show up here. I think this is Regan Grimes' show to lose on paper here in California, unless
Yeah.
somebody comes out of the woodwork. But right now, Kiso does have to do the elementary work of working on that posing. That is the most elementary side. We said that Paul Dillette's entire career. And sadly, Paul actually beat me one time when I was caught sleeping at the Ironman and the Arnold. So it's possible that you can still win even if you have a crappy routine. We've seen that with Gary Stridham. He won out there in Houston, Texas, way back in the day. We've seen some guys that have very lackluster routines still be able to go on to win. What Kiso's problem is, I think he has to get more stage experience. That's why California would have worked good for him, because it's like, why shut it down now? Go back to the drawing board, get really big in the off season, and go home just to wait a whole nother year. I think he missed an opportunity by not coming to California to
Well,
work on
speaking
that.
of missing opportunity, two guys notable that are not on the list for California. I don't know if that can change. I know some of the new rules, they want those names in prior to. So, but Kiso and William Bonac, your second place finisher, which we'll cover in a minute, both absent from California. Now, William's been burning the midnight oil here, competing numerous times. Kiso, that's only his second show he was in. But I can't imagine that either one of those guys. Listen, William, even at 90% right now, is formidable. Took a runner-up position here, and will be going against nobody he hasn't beaten already in California. He's out
Yeah.
of the list, possibly taking a break. But why take a break when you're 6 days away from possibly returning to the Olympia stage? And same for Kiso.
Yeah, William didn't get the right advices. Forget about Kiso, but William is a perennial champion. This show had his name on it. It's an easy payday. I believe it's $10,000, which is what I won back in 1990. How many years ago was
Let's
that? 15
let's
years.
hope. Yeah.
But nonetheless, William Bonac doing just cardio could have come in here and held off a young, charging Regan Grimes if he didn't change anything in his routine. Just do cardio. Could have came out here, visited Gold's Gym, got some nostalgic pictures, got some training in, maybe meet up with Charles Glass, get some work in that posing room, the infamous posing room in Gold's Gym. It's 80 degrees outside. This would have been a vacation that would have been paid for William Bonac on his way to, I personally believe, a Masters Olympia championship title when they hold that thing over in Tokyo, Japan. William Bonac right now, my bodybuilder of the year.
Well, and while that's a great accolade to have, I'm sure William would like to finish his career on the Olympia stage, as it would be in a final Olympia appearance. Whether or not we're going to see that, I don't know. I will say this: I got to give William a lot of credit. He's still very consistent. He's still bringing a formidable package that he's beaten some of these young guys, like you say, and some veterans, and he puts himself in a position to win. Now, while he came up short against Nick, which obviously we're going to get into in a second, Nick Walker, your winner. I kind of had to laugh because I see a lot of these quotes. And listen, once again, people, can we put this on a screen? I mean, can we put like words on there that like one of those disclaimers at the beginning? But we do not hate Nick Walker personally. We are only responding on his physique and what he brings to the physique table. Listen, nobody didn't think Nick was going to win this show. I mean, it was an easy show for him to win, so to say. Not any top Olympia contenders here. So congratulations by the same token, Shawn. I see on one of the other networks a quote: Nick Walker shuts down the critics. Did he?
No, he didn't have critics when it came to New York. He was going up against a Mr. Olympia in Pittsburgh, and across the board, none of us thought that he could beat Mr. Olympia. He made it close. Mr. Olympia was not at his best. We've seen Mr. Olympia get beat before by Gunther Schlierkamp back in 2002 at the GNC. I was there. He's not a slouch, okay? This is a guy coming off of a long layoff from injury, some mental situations. He shut down a lot of naysayers going in. We were not on the wrong side of history because this guy had some issues. He shut a lot of people down. Nick Walker's not somebody that we've been sleeping on. He was going up against Derek, right? So arguably, we weren't going to go in there thinking that he's had some miraculous offseason, was going to beat Derek, and he didn't beat Derek. Going into the New York Pro without Derek, I don't know anybody that was cheering against Nick. I mean, he was the crowd favorite in Pittsburgh. He's a two-time defending champion of the New York Pro title, former Arnold Classic winner, national champion. There's no knock on Nick being able to win the New York Pro. We're not talking about the Mr. Olympia in New York, where arguably he beat an Asian 42-year-old in the form of William Bonac. And when he won the previous night of champions or New York Pro Championships, he wasn't beating Olympians. As a matter of fact, Bob, for history's sake and statistics, Nick's last New York championship, he beat Martin Fitzwater. Very debatable, very closely contested contest. Arguably could have gotten second place.
Yeah.
Prior to that, who did he beat to win the New York Pro?
Well, he has 3 victories now. That's his third. Martin was last, and the one before that, if I'm not mistaken, it was Justin Rodriguez and Hassan Mustafa, I believe, if I'm not.
Yeah, not two barnstorming Olympiad threats. Okay, so when we're saying going against the Mr. Olympia, that's not going to happen, that was pretty solid. Going into the New York Pro, I think both of us said, absent Martin Fitzwater working on his dramatic improvements, this was Nick's contest in a walkaway, runaway victory over William Bonac, who did not threaten for the title.
No.
This was Nick's title. Was Nick better than Pittsburgh? It's apples to apples, man. I mean, I didn't think that William Bonac was close to beating Nick in New York, but William Bonac wasn't going to be close to beating Derek in Pittsburgh. So the stage is set for the Olympia. We are right back where we were when Nick Walker won the New York Pro previously. It is a long run up to the Mr. Olympia, and with all that volume, I believe he was on record as saying he wants to add even more weight. I'm not sure where it will go, but
That's
it's
not a good
predictable. Move. Pretty predictable that it will probably wind up around the midsection, which is his Achilles heel.
Well, that wasn't Achilles heel here, for the record, at least in my opinion. He was better in Pittsburgh than he was in New York. Not that he needed to be better in New York, but just Nick versus Nick. Like I say, apples versus apples. He was better in Pittsburgh. The midsection continued to be an issue in New York. Didn't cost him the title. Good for him. His conditioning wasn't as crisp as it was previously, again, in Pittsburgh. Listen, the kid brings a lot of muscle to the table, and that's great, but he's going to have a tough time with some of these other guys. And again, I don't want to shit all over his parade. Listen, we're not taking away your victory. Nick is not responsible for whoever gets on stage and competes against him. Let's just get that straight. We've never said anything different. We're also both fond of saying you're only as good as whoever you're standing next to. So you got to take that into consideration, people. Okay, listen, great victory. Good for him. I'm glad, and I hope to God he can get to the Olympia stage, because that's not a given. He didn't make it to.
Really quick, remind me where William Bonac placed in the Mr. Olympia last year.
Oh, geez. I believe he was seventh or eighth.
That is who Nick Walker beat almost 1 year later, as William Bonac continues to age out of the business, while Nick is closing the gap in New York, making it look even more amazing. He's beating an aging bodybuilder at the age of 42 who was 7th in the Mr. Olympia a year ago.
That's
going to be drastically different come this October.
So here's the funny thing to me. The argument out there in La La Land is that because Nick Walker almost beat Derek, it was tied, it went to overtime, he almost beat him, and therefore he is a legitimate contender to the Mr. Olympia title, something which I've said will probably never happen. Here's my problem with that, Shawn. It was Nick Walker just last year when he was getting challenged that Martin Fitzwater should have beaten him, and
Yeah,
I had him
right.
beating him. A lot of people had. It was as close between Nick and
And
Martin
that's
as
true.
it was with Nick and Derek this year. That's
Yeah,
how
you're
close it
absolutely
was. It was
right.
a 1 point decision. Could have gone the other way, right? Nick's response was, and I'm going to use Nick's own words. Listen, I was at my worst. If Martin can't beat me at my worst, how can he beat me at my best? Now, I'm going to use the same words. Well, Derek Lunsford was at his worst. Now, his worst being, of course, still a top elite level physique and a former
Yeah.
Mr. Olympia. But arguably, that might have been the worst Derek we've seen between the Arnold that he won, the Olympia that he won, the Olympia that he even took third. This was probably the worst Derek that we've seen. So I'm going to use Nick's words. If you can't beat a Mr. Olympia, in this case, Derek Lunsford at his worst, what makes you think you can beat him at his best? Does this bring Nick into contention, in your opinion, Shawn, that he is a legitimate threat to win the title?
Yeah, I mean, he is in the conversation by virtue of the business. Um, we've seen stranger things happen. Okay, I never thought Big Ramy would be Mr. Olympia. So disproportionate. Quads are so overblown. The
True that.
triceps are missing. The shoulders were overblown. The back didn't have the depth. He was the least likely candidate to become Mr. Olympia. Not only did he become Mr. Olympia, he did it twice.
Yeah.
So I've seen stranger things happen. I think Nick Walker in this day and age is very reminiscent of the old Tom Platz in his day and age. Tom Platz brought people to their feet. He
Yeah.
was a crowd favorite. He was a perennial guy that you could not help but cheer for in terms of being one of the most popular athletes. That's the fan favorite Tom Platz was. And what did he get second place in 1981 to
Yeah.
for
That's the highest.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he got all the way up to second. If you look at Tom Platz's physique today, and you line them up against the physiques that we know, Flex Wheeler, Kevin Lefrone, guys that haven't even won the Olympia.
Right.
Tom Platt second in the Mr. Olympia? That's almost impossible. We
Right.
would never think that. But again, you're only as good as the people you stand next to. Nick Walker was not standing next to former Mr. Olympias. He was not standing next to perennial top three, top four Olympia champions. He was standing next to an aging 42-year-old bodybuilder that has two Arnold Classic titles to his credit and a slew of other victories. William is formidable. He's my bodybuilder of the year. What he's doing at his age is amazing.
Yeah.
But he's doing it against guys that are not being talked about for being Mr. Olympia. Now, if all things align, and it's going to take a lot, Hadi Chupin being off for a year, Samson getting beaten at the Arnold Classic, having to defend his title, Derek coming oh so close to getting beat. Does Derek get more fired up now, knowing that Nick almost took the title from him? I think so.
Yeah.
Does Samson have vengeance on his mind,
Yeah.
thinking that, you know what? I got beat at the Arnold, and is Hadi over there licking his chops? Nick is not going to be going up against bodybuilders that are aging out. He's going to be going against some hungry lions. And truth be told, I think Nick's going to be fighting to remain or get back into the top five. That's where I have Nick Walker in light of all that he's done. Remember, psychologically, he missed the Mr. Olympia not because of injury. Psychologically, this victory is the same victory he had a year ago, but he didn't make it to the finish line. I think his mindset's a little different. I think he's believing the hype. I think he's believing that he's very close. I think he's right by dumbing it down, saying, I want to make the top three. A little bit more realistic than saying, I'm going to be the next Mr. Olympia. He's been humbled, but now he is also hungry because he's maturing. He's believing what people are telling him. He is rolling through. The problem is the physique. There's only so much you can do with the mind. You can get your head right, but it's going to be very hard to make the changes he needs to make between now and October without running out of gas.
Well, he's got to get past 6 people, so people will be happy to hear this. I have officially taken back my. I'm going to be the guy announcing you in 8th place, Nick. So I'm gonna retire that, and I'm going to move you up 1 slot to 7th place. Okay. And
Wow.
now, yeah, I know. Listen, I'm just being fair, right,
Fair
Shawn? I
enough.
mean, it's listen, I'm a guy. I can admit my mistakes when I got it. I might have been a little zealous in that 8th place finish. Then again, to back myself up, Hunter Labrada, who I initially would have had in that list, as he's beaten it
It's
before,
not
is,
him.
is not competing this year. Now, that said, don't want to make excuses. There's 6 good reasons why I have Nick fighting for 7th. Now, listen,
Yeah.
can he do better? Yes. He can do anything from 4th, in my opinion, to about 7th. Here's why. Hottie, Samson, Derek. Those are 3 guys I do not believe. And again, caveat again, can we put the disclaimer up there with the little flashing
I
light?
agree with you.
All
I
right.
agree with you.
Those 3, again, we're going on the idea that everybody's just 100%, including Nick Walker. Okay. That's all we can ever do. Is everybody there and is everybody 100%? In a perfect world, Shawn, everybody's there. Everybody nails it dead on.
Everyone nails it. That's the top 3. Those are 3 Mr. Olympias.
Those
Go
are
ahead.
3 Mr. Olympias. Those are 3 guys I don't believe under any circumstances. Again, we're going 100%. So if somebody comes in
Everybody's
off, well, it's fair game, right? Those are 3 guys I don't think he can beat. Now, here's the next batch of 3. Andrew, Beirut, and Fitzwater. Those are 3 guys that, again, at 100%, I think it would be challenging for Nick to get past them because every one of those guys is shaped better, put together better, don't have stomach issues, and present a very formidable physique. So that's why I got him. And again, I'll move him up to 7th place, in my opinion. Listen, can somebody come in off? Well, of course they can. That's why we play the game.
Okay, so you got him in 7th. I have him for a realistic chance to make the top 5. I'll tell you why. I'm not sure what this defeat did to Fitzwater, right? Because Fitzwater, like you said, he put on all this extra weight. It didn't translate. He's in a very he's in uncharted waters. He's in a very uncharted situation. We don't know how he's going to respond to that. Luckily, he was already qualified for the Olympia. Otherwise, he'd have to keep doing it. He'd probably win here in California. But Fitzwater is the unknown entity that now Nick can't put in his rear view, but for now, temporarily, he's proven that he can beat Fitzwater.
Yeah.
Now, Fitzwater's
Yeah.
gonna have to show me. He's gonna have to show me that he has a lot of bite left. He has the tools, but does he have the bite left? This is where his metal's gonna get tested. So there's one. Bring him up into 6th place. The other is Andrew Jack. Because even though Andrew Jack and everyone's cheering for Andrew, he's got all the tools. I mean, he looks great. He's tall,
Yeah.
he's lanky. He's the Tony Freeman with the X frame, a little slight in the hamstrings, a little light in the calves. Well, calves are a little high, I think. They stand
Yeah.
out. His presentation still has a lot to be desired, but he's the guy that, like Shawn Rhoden, is kind of a sleeper on stage. He doesn't jump out at you. He's not going to come and get in your face. There's a few funky poses, including the most muscular that he does, all crunched up. His presentation's not the best. I'm not really down with the mask and the facial stuff. This is a guy that can get caught. Andrew can get caught. And Nick may catch him on the freak factor while Andrew's on the sleep factor. That's why I say that it's very realistic with those 2 guys that Nick Walker has a chance to make the top 5. Will it happen? I don't know. Your arguments are valid, but those are 2 X factors. Fitzwater and Jax
Very much
are not reliable right now at this juncture going into the month of June. We'll see what happens going forward. But if I'm Nick, he said top 3. I think it's more realistic to top 5.
Well, let me finish this New York Pro recap off with this. Nick, congratulations. Well earned. Again, you're not responsible for who shows up, so don't take that as a negative. Good for you. You got 3 New York Pro rings. You are now qualified for the Mr. Olympia. I wish you the best in terms of health, wellness, and I hope to God you can get on that Olympia stage. And I mean that sincerely. Again, we're not being facetious. We're not trying to, put anything. Yes, Shawn.
Let me add one more X factor.
Okay.
He could move into the top 4. Beirut has never made it to the Olympia. Political, whatever
Correct.
the hell it is.
Correct.
There's no guarantee that Beirut winds up at the Olympia. And for that matter, Nick has a very solid chance to get into the top 4, which is not a slap in the face, which is definitely a vertical move up in his career, which keeps him on the racetrack, and it would do it in a way that he just has to catch one of those guys. One of 3 guys has to slip for him to crack that very elusive top 3. But he's smart by doubling down the aspirations mentally. If the top 3 is his aspiration, the door could be open if one of the top 3 heavy hitters come in sleeping and if Beirut is not allowed to come to the United States.
Well, if playing it smart is the caveat, and Nick, again, we wish you the best. We hope you get on the Olympia stage. That's sincere. I'm also going to give you some of the right advices from me and Shawn. You said in an interview after your victory that you're excited. Obviously, you're very pleased with your victory. and you think by putting on another 4 or 5 pounds before the Olympia will put you in a position, and you can see by
Don't do it.
Shawn's
Don't
right.
do it.
Listen, again, the right advice is, brother, don't do it.
Did
Okay?
anybody say he was too small? Did anybody say
No,
he needs to be bigger?
no, but
Come
I
on.
tell you what, 4 or 5 pounds in a few months can only go to one place, as you and I know, and that's the midsection. And that he can
Yeah.
ill afford to be putting any weight on. If anything, go the other way, get yourself a little bit leaner, get that midsection down, however you need to do it, and you will be a contender up in there. You will be in that first call out. So that's from me and
Let-
Shawn. To you, free. Don't worry about it, bro. Don't send a check or anything like that. I know Shawn's got the Building with Pros app and all that. No need for that, bro. So that said,
one relation to that, Bob.
yeah,
We saw this done before. Ronnie Coleman almost lost in 2001. Mr. Olympia almost lost his life,
right,
but he came back. And at the finals, he was heavily bloated. He
yeah,
still won, but we know that he had to go through this rehydration thing. But what did he do? Prior to that, he did the Arnold Classic.
yeah,
And when he did the Arnold Classic in 2001, he streamlined everything,
yeah,
right? He was really big in 98. He was in shape. He got bigger, but in 2001, he arguably came in at one of his best physique appearances at his lightest. I think it was 243.
yeah.
Nick will never be called or accused of being too small. The same way
No,
that Ronnie Coleman, once he won the Olympia, was never. No one ever said he was too small. Don't do it, Nick.
yeah. Well, that said, we're going to segue, and of course, any segue is going to come to us from our good friends at Celsius. Shawn, a little fruit punch there, cheap
There you go.
plug. So, we don't normally cover female bodybuilding or really any of the other divisions because we're both on the bodybuilding spectrum. That's what we do. Okay. I'm only bringing this up to segue us to our the next topic here. So, female bodybuilding was on display at the New York Pro. Reason I bring it up is there was 3 of them. 3. 1, 2, 3.
I
Now,
think if you only have 3 athletes registered, that the show should be canceled.
uh,
Bottom line. I
well, you're
get
in the
that the
top
girls
3.
get I get that the girls have to diet down and do all of that stuff. If you only have 3 athletes, you should not be able to have that show. And the girls that did get ready for it should be compensated nominally
Right.
for their preparation. But as a promoter, the federation should listen up, pull the plug. It's not a good look. No one benefits,
Yeah.
and it's not about they dieted. No, 3 people is not a contest. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, this is pathetic for a few reasons, and we're not going to delve into that because I want to get into some bigger stuff that we got coming up. But this is just not good for any good reason, right? The fact that you've got hundreds of pro cards out there, and they give away more pro cards now than ever in the history of our sport, and you
Yeah.
can only muster 3. And Shawn, I don't remember between you and I, and maybe you've seen this, but I haven't. I don't even know if there's ever been a show that I've seen that had only 3 competitors at an IFBB pro show. I've never seen it.
No,
Have you?
no. The only time I've ever heard about it, and I wasn't in the sport, was when Arnold won 1970. I mean, they just
No,
didn't have
bro.
enough
We're going.
athletes.
Yeah, you're going back to ancient. I'm talking modern
But
era.
I've been in the game for 40 years.
Yeah.
I've never been to a pro event
No.
where there's only been 3 in men or women.
Well, here's the problem. Okay, what you have is you've got declining numbers. Again, you have declining interest, despite Jake Wood's efforts, and I give him all the credit in the world. And I got to be honest here. I'm a little pissed off at seeing some of the comments out there. This is coming from some of the pro women bodybuilders out there who are actually giving.
You mean the
Bro,
ones that aren't competing in the show?
correct. The one's
Okay.
not even competing, right? And they're actually giving shit to Jake Wood, of all people. And I just looked at this, bro, with wonderment in my eyes. The balls you got it. Well, let me not use that phrase. The guts you got to have to give Jake any kind of shit when this guy saved your sport over 10 years ago. It was dead and buried. Jake Wood came along. He resurrected it. He then bought the Olympia, and I don't want to put words in Jake's mouth, but one of the primary reasons he bought it was to get his hands on the Miss Olympia and reinstate it into the Olympia weekend, which he did, to his credit. He's put his money's where his mouth is. He has done this out of his own pocket with no return, okay? Jake's not stupid. He knew this was not going to elicit any kind of a big, income coming and no return on investment. He did this out of the love for his what he likes, which is women's bodybuilding and bodybuilding in general. But to give him crap about the money he's giving away or not giving away at any show, You chicks need to check yourself, okay? And I'm going to back up Jake 100% on this. Boy, you talk about ungrateful, or being
Yeah.
in a position, Shawn, where it's like, boy, ain't that something? Where this guy has put out hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, millions. That's not a fictitious number I'm pulling out. I can do the math. And for you guys to
Yeah.
complain and to not even support the pro division women's shows, listen, this thing could die a quick death real fast if Jake decides to pull that plug. But listen, ladies, again, just a little something from me to you, okay? Stop. Just stop, okay? Don't bite the hand that feeds you. And he's the only hand that's been feeding you, I'll have you know. So your 2 cents on that one, Shawn. But I see this
Well, I
history
mean,
repeating
listen,
itself.
I would have given them up to 2 weeks out. And if there were no more registrations, I would have contacted the three that did
Yeah,
get ready.
you hate to do
I
it,
would have
but
give, I would have given them the reasons why. I'm sure they as athletes would have understood the reasons why the plug was pulled, and I would have given them back a nominal sum. As a promoter, I would have asked for my sanction fee back from the IFBB Pro League, and that sanction fee that I paid to the IFBB Pro League, I would have divvied it up against with the three girls that were getting ready for the show. That being said, you got to remember Weinberger was married to one of the world's biggest,
right,
most muscular female bodybuilders ever. If you're going to support a female bodybuilding show and you're a female, New York is the place to be. Like literally, go out there to the
right.
Mecca, go support Steve, what Big Steve and Bev Francis. They're giving opportunities to girls that a lot of promoters don't. So now, as a promoter, I'm Steve Weinberger. Why would I in 2026 entertain the idea of putting this out there to satisfy only three girls? You're doing yourselves no favors. I don't represent the women, but the women that we're criticizing are the ones that I would be putting an asterisk towards if I'm a promoter, because I don't want to be criticized by any of the athletes in my show. It takes money, it takes time, it takes coordination to make them welcome and feel part of the experience. The ones that weren't there, that were throwing stones, shame on them. They're not doing themselves any favors.
Well, no good deed goes unpunished. So I appreciate, everybody appreciates Jake's efforts. Again, of our, variety of people that aren't actually in the game. We can see the efforts, we see the money, we see the passion.
It's
To Steve,
a lot of work.
same thing, right? It's like, man, you put all this together and that's what you get. Of course, it's not going to be back next year. Listen, Steve's a
All
businessman.
right, by the way, instead of talking about the ones that were throwing stones and weren't there, what about the three that did show up? Who won this show?
Well,
I was
so
traveling.
the
I
three
wasn't
name
able to.
Chelsea Dion wins and she qualifies for the Olympia. Nadia Capitosto and Lena Bedica, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Bedica, if I'm not mistaken. So to those three, congratulations. Good for you, girls. We applaud your effort. But again, there's going to be a lot more discussion on this coming up because I think it's time to have
Well, let me
that
tell you what's
talk.
going to happen. So
Well,
other
listen,
promoters will look at this and think, "Holy crap, that could be me. I don't want women's bodybuilding." Now, how do you get qualified to go to the Olympia? Those qualifying shows are going to disappear.
well, you'll have to go to an invite like the Arnold, right? Or listen, we're watching history repeating itself in real time, Sean. You and I have
That's
been around
true.
long enough that we saw the rise, the fall, the rise
The
again, and now the
resurgence.
fall again of
Yeah,
women's bodybuilding. In my
it's
opinion, and
happening.
this is a subject for a whole nother show that we need an hour for. You have to change the criteria. You have to change the judging standards if this is
Qualification.
going to survive. Otherwise, it's just going to die again. And I got to be honest, fitness is in the same boat. Again, topic for a different day, but they're dying on the vine. And again, I've suggested some changes in criteria for fitness because that's not looking good in terms of numbers and participation. So, Shawn, the Cali Pros coming up. We got a real quick review on this one because you got Regan, Grimes, and Sasan. So those two will be back. You got Bruno Santos and Leandro from Brazil. Both of them very good bodybuilders. Leandro took a very close second place to Good Vito. That
Yeah.
was in FIBO at that show. So four good bodybuilders there. The return of Patrick Moore. We just haven't seen Patrick materialize. But more importantly, Shawn, in your neck of the woods, no Eddie Brock and Montez and no On Win. Where are those guys? They're always in this show.
Yeah, Antonio. There's a lot of guys that are not doing this. A year ago, you had Sergio Oliva Jr. This is a show that I think is going to be on life support. I wouldn't be surprised if this show was not around in a year or two. These male bodybuilders don't do themselves any favors either. Mind you, it costs a lot to sanction a pro show. And then you got to come up with the prize money. And then there's a lot of logistics. I mean, I just remember like the California Pro is a great.
Yeah.
It's right here at Disneyland. You got to take in Gold's Gym, right? Get out here early. We're
Yeah.
having summer-like weather in mid-May. Um, it's not resonating with these guys, and these are guys that are coming in from other countries, right? They're
Well,
coming from other countries, so the numbers are paltry. The names are very unfamiliar, and as you guys sit on the sideline and let these shows die, I would not be surprised if this show's gone in a year or two.
well, I have suggested, and I'll continue to suggest to the pro league. It goes a little deeper than that, in my opinion, Shawn. I think the scheduling to me is a problem. I brought this up
Yes.
before. We both talked about it. What you're seeing is you got the early shows starting from March with the Arnold and all those. So you got March, April, and May. All right. Then you got a kind of a gap, okay? Because any of those guys that were coming off the Olympia or the Arnold, you're done. The fact that
Yeah.
Sasan is still going and Bonac just finished is a miracle. That is very difficult to do. But you're not seeing any quote superstars, okay? Then you get to kind of June and it's kind of dead time, and then you get to July, August, and September, which leads up to the Olympia. So you almost have a split because you're either got to kind of pick one or they pick the other to kind of you either try to get the early qualification or you kind of wait to get later because you can't diet all summer long.
Well, that's why I say this. I mean, all roads lead to the Olympia. No, everybody wants to go there.
Yeah.
But the one bodybuilder that's thinking, you know what, I need to pad my pockets. I need to secure my financial future. I need to get some championships. If Flex and Chris or Milos were competing today, they'd be running the table. Dexter would
Right.
be running the table, and these guys showed up in the Mr. Olympia in shape. They were money hungry, money grabbing athletes. Vince Taylor, Flex Wheeler,
Yeah.
Chris Cormier, Milo Sarchev.
Right.
Look at the shows that they did. They were able to do the business. It hasn't gotten harder. These shows are spread out for you guys to come and make money. William Bonac absolutely should be in California. You're
But
42 years old.
Shawn,
It's your last year.
those guys to their credit though, the shows were grouped closer together. Like when
No,
you
no,
went
no,
on
no.
that
No,
run,
no, 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 no. They weren't. The Arnold has always been in March.
yeah.
The New York Pro was always in May. The Australian Championships as well. The Miami show, the Canada show. These shows have always been spread out. This is nothing new. What's new is these athletes taking the advice of their coaches, sitting things out, skipping this, that, and the third, and then you wind up with these big gaps in these small attended shows from the athletes. These shows have always been positioned here. You go, I didn't see the Tampa Pro one year. It was always in August.
But
So
yeah,
these shows haven't moved around. They've added more shows. The Texas Pro wasn't there in that little time
but
slot.
you don't see guys competing in March, April, and May unless they're really trying to get to the Olympia with the ability to compete in July, August, and September. You just don't. It's two
No, but
different groups.
here's the thing. They don't. They as I was just I started this by saying some of you guys have to realize. Like I always wanted to be Mr. Olympia. That's why I
Yeah.
only did the Olympia. But at some point, it becomes a business. You got to go out there and chase the paper. The prize money's going up in certain shows,
Right.
and getting to the Olympia may be the end all be all for the guy that thinks he can become Mr. Olympia. For the guy that realizes, like William Bonac at 42, that he may never become Mr. Olympia. He's done it enough. He knows what it's all about. He knows what it's like placing out of the money. So now I got to change up. Now I got to just do the business. Now I got to go out there and get some titles and get some prize money. This is absolutely a show that William Bonac can win and get compensated for. He can stay on his program and his regime, dumbing it down and still beating guys that are less than, adding titles and adding paper in his pocket. He may burn out by the time the Olympia comes, but why do another Olympia? He doesn't need to be on that stage. He should be out there mingling with his fans after doing 10 pro shows. Talk to Dexter, talk to Kevin, talk to Flex, talk to Vince, talk to Milos. This is not anything new running the table throughout the year if you are serious and programmed that it's the long run. That's where you make the money. Because some of these guys that qualify for the Olympia, they're not going to get $1 come October. They're going to
Well,
qualify
can't
and they're going
argue
to go
with
to the
that.
Olympia and they're going to get nothing because they're just the competition's too steep. So why not reprogram yourself? Like this is where Williams should be getting this check. He should be in Tokyo getting that check. Hell, Canada is coming up right after this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the Indy Pro has men or not, but that's where I would be if I'm these guys. Regan Grimes, go do all these other shows and stop thinking, okay, I have to be in the Olympia. They've already been in the Olympia. They know there's nothing waiting for them that's good based on your top 6, top 7.
Well, that's, you know what? That's a good way to look at it from a business perspective, Shawn. Like I say, the difference is you're looking at
It's
it
all
as purely a
business.
business.
It's
And
all
some of them are
business.
looking at the, like I say, the all holy grail of getting to the Olympia stage at all costs, which, like you
Well, it
said,
ain't
will
fun.
usually elicit a less than stellar placing, a big fat zero in your account, and a lot of expenses, because that is not a cheap show to get ready for when it comes to preps. All right, so
It's all business. Yeah.
it's all business, as we always talk about the business of bodybuilding, Shawn.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of
Yes,
the
sir.
business of bodybuilding, that brings us to our main topic of our show. So we saw a few things come out this week of note. Kind of started with Ali Bilal at the Arnold, who, although he won, felt a little bit slighted, a little bit discouraged at what Arnold's comments, but and the prize money. Okay, wasn't so much about the prize money that he was bitching, but everything else but that kind of
He
started
didn't
the
know
ball.
about the prize money before he got in the show. I mean, it's the first
No,
thing you look
no, no.
at.
And like I said, the money, to be fair to Ali, the money wasn't really the first thing on his list. I mean, he did complain about it afterwards, but it was more of I'd like to see it go up. That said, then we saw an announcement from Arnold last week that he's increasing his prize money to $750,000, $250 for second, another $250 going to the UK, should that show go on. And so he's bumping it up. Great.
Love it.
Good for the athlete. Yeah, listen, I am all in support of any money that goes up and goes to these athletes. It's well overdue. All right, so good on Arnold on that one, right? The Olympia has been increasing it all. Olympia, as everybody knows, last year Jake bumped it up to $600,000 for first place. I'm sure that's probably destined to go up as well. But what it started, Shawn, was this discussion, and Glenda Murray kind of leading the charge, our good friend and constituent from Olympia TV and such, and one of the all-time greats in women's bodybuilding. Well, she took it upon herself to put a post out this week, but it wasn't about that. It was in particular about the disparity between the prize money between the men and the women. And
isn't that what they're doing in the WNBA?
well, you took the words right out of my mouth, bro. So what I want to do is take a few minutes. You could actually just end the segment with that, right? But it got me thinking, why are the people out there, when I say the people, I'm talking about the fans, because I'm looking at the comments. Now, a lot of comments she's getting blasted on there because they're like, look at, why don't you increase the money on your own show? And well, why don't you look at this? And why don't you look at that? And all that kind of stuff. And we're not here to come down on Linda. She's a good friend of ours, and I know she means well. But what we are here to do is to give people the education that they need, because a lot of people what I've noticed is they never finish math class. Okay, this is economics 101, people. You and I have been around long enough, Shawn, that this comes around about every 5 to 7 years, and we have to explain the same thing. What you just said is dead on the money. WNBA versus NBA. For those who don't know, that's the National Basketball Association and the Women's National Basketball Association. Okay,
funded by the NBA.
Again, took the words out of it. You were dead on the money again, brother. NBA, $10 billion seasonally, annually, whatever you want to look at it. Billion with a B. Women's WNBA, $200 million. Okay? It actually doesn't make enough to sustain the stuff. It's actually subsidized by the men's league. Okay?
Right.
Now, I did some more homework, all right? Now, listen, you can pick up anything, but, PGA versus LPGA, okay, golf. Okay? Scotty Scheffler, the number one golfer in the world, made $29 million last year, on the circuit. A girl named Nelly Korda, who I'm sure you're familiar with, Shawn. I know you follow the LPGA. She made $4 million. Okay? Now, here's the problem, and I get this is where people, the disconnect is. People think it's the same job. Well, she's playing this. She's doing the same thing. She's playing the same 18-hole course. Why should she get so much less than the men? 4 good answers right off the bat, Shawn, and then we'll get into it, okay? Here are your factors, people. Listen up. Viewership, ticket sales, sponsorships, and merchandise sales. These are what drive these events, okay? Here's the difference. Viewership. Now, we're not on TV, but it's the same principle, Shawn, okay? How many people are watching? You and I both know you go to a show, you go to the Olympia, whatever it is, 95% of the people are there to watch the men's open bodybuilders. Okay?
Correct.
Maybe over the last couple of years that shifted a little bit. I'll go 90% with the men's, and then I'm going to go another 5% with classic physique, which is still men's bodybuilding. Okay?
Well, how much did the sport suffer when women's bodybuilding was not even part of the Mr. Olympia weekend?
Well,
Has the
again,
Arnold Classic suffered when he got rid of the Miss International?
well,
I don't remember the last women bodybuilder that won the Miss International, but I haven't heard anybody clamoring to get the women's bodybuilding reinstituted.
so Shawn, you were on stage standing right next to me at the podium as we did the first two of my Olympia hosting duties, MC duties. So 2006, 2007, there's me and Shawn at the Orleans Arena looking out. And if you remember, Shawn, Friday night was ladies' night. Okay,
Yeah.
Cool and the Gang playing, right? And it was ladies' night, and it was women's bodybuilding and figure and fitness, right? I don't even think we had bikini yet, or if it was just getting in there. But it was ladies' night, Friday night at the Orleans Arena. And guess how many people were there, folks? There was nobody in the arena.
Yeah.
The floor plan, for those that have been there, okay, you can look this up. Okay, had a VIP section, all right, that was kind of in the front. Then they had the judges, and then there was some more VIP on the floor. We would fill up, if you remember, Shawn, just the floor seats in the front. That's it. Now,
Yeah, it was cold in the building.
for
It was an
everybody
arena.
that wants to know, well, how do you know what people are buying? Do they separate the tickets? How do they know? How do they know? You know how we know? Because we were there. Okay?
Yeah.
We did have the tickets separated out. They were on a whole different night. And we lost a lot of money. Okay? A lot of money was lost on Friday, which we had to make up for on Saturday, which was packed at a tune of 8,000 to 10,000 people for the men's
Sold
events.
out. Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
that is why, if you want to do some history lesson here, that's why the men's prejudging is on Friday night, because we had to do something to offset it. We had a losing night, we had a winning night. We took the men's prejudging, which still today is on Friday night, to counter the lack of people that would come. Okay, we did not sell a lot of tickets.
To speak on behalf of the men bodybuilders, that's exactly what's ruined the look of our men bodybuilders. The 2-day
Agreed.
peaking process.
Agreed.
The 2-day peaking process has ruined the look of our Mr. Olympia winners since the days of the 90s. So when you start talking about what's changed, that's number one on my list, having the men
Correct.
trying to peak twice in 2 days.
Well, listen, that is very fair. And you know, both of us have been proponents of putting that men's prejudging back on Saturday in the afternoon, 12 noon. I think would be better for the guys. These guys would be 30% better if they were on a 12 noon on Saturday afternoon. Also, I believe would be better for pay-per-view considerations.
Well,
and it's on the West Coast in Vegas, right? Assuming it's going to stay there, which it is, we know this year. Well, guess what? 12 noon is 3 o'clock on the East Coast. And even if you get all the way into Europe, okay, it's still early evening. So you appeal to a wider base anyway. But again, subject for a different day. But Shawn, there is no disparity, people. The women only bring in X amount, okay? Sponsors only come in, for the overall factor, which is the men, okay? So it's not that they're doing the same job. It's not, well, they work just as hard as the guys and they should be compensated as much. No, that's not the way it works. First of all, no, it's not the same job, okay? Shawn, if you and I were digging a hole out in the backyard, we're doing the same job, okay? We're both digging a hole. But here's the difference. If 100,000 people are tuning into my Instagram and watching me dig the hole, and 10 people are on your Instagram watching you dig the hole, there's your difference. Are we doing the same job? Yes. Is it worth the same amount of money? No. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think the women are taking things personally. Look, I was challenged when I was complaining about prize money at a bodybuilding show. I was challenged to try to be a promoter. The reason I'm a promoter is because somebody told me I couldn't do it. But the reason why they told me I couldn't do it was because I was complaining about the way they were doing it. Now, when I got into bodybuilding, I wanted to bodybuild. But so many of my friends that didn't understand what bodybuilding was told me I couldn't do it because they saw the guys that were doing it and they just didn't think that I could do the same thing.
Right, sure.
that was the spark. That's what I needed. Linda and anybody else out there complaining about the disparity in prize money, you do have to put your money where your mouth is. I have not seen any one female athlete champion fundraising, promoting, or raising the prize money when they have the autonomy to do it. There's nothing holding any one of those ladies
Well,
back.
hang on. I
When
got
I
to
was
give credit
challenged,
where it's due. Hang on.
let me give you context. When I was challenged John Balick about raising his prize money, which was $10,000
I remember that.
for 13 consecutive years, I was the first recipient of that 10,000 in 1990. He told me to go out and do my own show. So I did. In 2006, I wrote Phil Heath a check for 25,000.
Yeah.
2007, I wrote Kai Green a check for 25,000. Both of those checks were number
Bounce.
three on the They were number 3 on the calendar for number 1 prize money.
Yeah.
Behind the Olympia, behind the Arnold Classic, came the Shawn Ray Classic. It was more than the Night of Champions that had been around since the 80s. It was more than the Ironman that had been around since 1990, and any other pro show that was on the calendar. So my argument then was I just wanted to do it. I was challenged to do it. I wanted to do it. So
Well,
at the time I was complaining about prize money. The ladies, if this is your time, now it's time for you to not argue on the internet about what someone's doing with their money, Arnold, what he's doing with his money. Go out and raise your own money. Put it out there on your show. Make us aware of what you're doing to rally your own sponsors, your own network. Women's bodybuilding has been acknowledged since 1979 at the Olympia level. So it's nothing new. It's over 40 years old. But at the same time, these other smaller shows, we've seen Jake Wood give out 50,000 at the Rising Phoenix. He's putting his money where his mouth is, but he's not a woman. He doesn't know what the challenge is for women. Where are the women doing women things for the women? That's where you need to rise up and rally together. Get behind Linda Murray. The ones that are talking about the New York Pro, get behind, pull your money together. Bob, you made an interesting comment. What did you say about numbers numerically? If the women pulled together and put in $1,
right.
you were
Well,
you tell me.
Linda decided to go down a different road, which I was a little surprised at. But she was talking about the amount of followers out there, and it was
Okay.
X versus Y again, whatever. But it's like, well, here's the problem. Okay, it doesn't translate into dollars. You can spout
Yeah.
all the fans you want. Hey, we have 3 million followers. Like, great, get each one of them to give you $1. Just a
Yeah.
dollar. That's $3 million,
$1.
right? But wait a minute. You can't do it. And guess what? They ain't at the shows either because we see a mass exodus. Listen, you see a mass exodus. I was in Pittsburgh. There was a mass exodus when the men's physique guys came up there.
Yeah,
And
that's
literally
true.
two
It was
thirds of the
massive.
crowd left, okay? That's not against the men's physique division. That's just in the hierarchy of the men's category. It goes down in accordance, okay? Men's bodybuilding, classic, 212, men's physique, okay?
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes. The fan base dwindles. In the women's division, it's actually the opposite. Bikini, wellness, figure, put fitness up in there anywhere, that's a different animal. Women's physique and women's bodybuilding. It's the opposite spectrum. Less interest, less sponsors, less everything. The more you go up in the muscularity with the women. That's just the way it is. Shawn, you and I were around when women's bodybuilding was at the Felt Forum on its own.
Yeah.
When they had
In
their
New
own
York.
magazines, when they had features, when they were on covers of magazines, right? With Linda and Corey Everson and Rachel and all that. And that fell off, and that's another whole different topic. But here's the bottom line. Linda has a show, and she was getting called out on it. I got to give the people credit. They're like, Linda, you have your own show. You can give out. Why are you giving away more to the men than the women? Right? That said, listen, for those saying, well, why don't they just put the women's show? Listen, they've tried women's shows on their own for years. Jake Wood, once again, has put on the Rising Phoenix. It was an all-women's show for years. The first
Have you ever
year,
heard of an all men's show?
I think you were there.
Have you ever heard of this is an all men's weekend?
No, so you don't get that.
I mean, the Nationals has men and women. The New York Pro has men and women.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the segregated part of this is an all men's weekend only. But when I hear all women's weekend, I'm not interested in going. You just lost my ticket sale. You just lost my interest. It'd be saying, look, this is going to be an all Democratic contest. There's going to be an all Republican. This
Right.
is an all Catholic. This is an all black. You
Right.
can't do that and think it's going to be inclusive to sponsors. People, you lose your audience when you say this is an all women's event. Now the sponsors are out. You lost half your audience.
Well, they don't listen. They don't have half an audience. This is the problem. Is again, in the whole scheme of things, we're not the NBA. Okay, we're not the PGA. We're not
We don't
football.
have
Okay?
TV.
We're not
Right.
baseball. We don't have TV revenue. Okay, so what we rely on is pure fan base. Okay, the fan base for the women's events, unfortunately, are just not that high. So when you say women's events, and Shawn, I believe you were there the first year of the Rising Phoenix. God bless
100%.
Jake. He put on an all women's event. It was just the pro women, pro bodybuilders.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
nobody there. Okay.
Even when they added the amateurs, there was nobody there.
When they added the other pro divisions, it was very slight. Okay. And again, this is nothing against. God bless Jake again for putting this out there. But you can see that you just don't have those kind of numbers to support. So yes, the women's shows were combined with the men's shows many years ago because they could not sustain the men's events, subsidize it. Now, before
you
I
know what
start
I'd
getting
like to
hate mail, okay, this is not NPC, folks. Okay, we're talking about the IFBB Pro League because when you're
Yeah.
talking about NPC, it's a whole different animal because mom, dad, sis, bro, and aunt and uncle Petunia, okay, are coming to the show to support. That's different. Pros don't sell tickets. Very difficult unless you get to the elite levels, and then you see where it is, and it's 90% men. Okay, so I hope this helps people out there understand that no, it's not the same job and it's not equal pay and all that kind of stuff. This isn't two people working as engineers out there in the workforce, okay, who are doing the exact same job and should get paid the same. That is a
Well,
different argument.
in defense of Lyndon, I did have a conversation with her. She basically wanted to start the conversation. Now, good or bad, or however she went, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Other people are talking. Some people are complaining. Conversation creates change, and change creates action. By this conversation, by this dust up that we're having, maybe in 2026, Linda does raise her prize money more than what the men.
All
Maybe
the
she
power
does
to
get
her.
some. She may have some bleeding hearts. The women may start to rally around it because look, it's not a good look when you only have 3 bodybuilders in a show. The threat
Right.
that it could disappear. Weinberger threatens that it's going to be disappearing. Maybe he winds up with 20 girls next year. But I tell you what, it is not Arnold's fiduciary responsibility with his own money to make brand awareness equal for everyone across the board. Arnold competed for peanuts.
Right.
His Olympia check was $1,000. He came from absolutely nothing. We've always wanted to see this Olympia get up to $1 million. Any show up to $1 million, being a young
Yeah.
bodybuilder. The things that are happening now are things I was hoping for when I was competing. The people complaining about how much money is being given away, they were not there getting the scraps when there was nothing at stake except a trophy, when there was nothing but menial sponsorship dollars. Arnold is doing something incredible. Yeah, it may be going to only one guy, but one guy crashes the ceiling. In football, they're getting $200 million to play
Right.
quarterback. That's not a slap in the face to the punter. It's not a slap in the
Right.
face for the kick returner, the long snapper. They're never going to see that kind of money. The
Well,
winner of the Arnold Classic getting 750 opens the gateway to potentially the Mr. Olympia winding up at $1 million. When that happens, that is a significant advancement that Joe Weider would roll over in his grave, and everyone should be applauding. I don't think this is taking away from the sport or from the women. I think it's beneficial, and we're headed in the right direction. Change
listen.
comes about action.
Well, we can't force people to like what they don't like. Okay. The fans obviously dictate what they want to support and what they don't. In defense of the promoters, okay, and this goes for anybody from Lenda to Jake Wood to Tamer El Gindi to Tim Gardner to Shawn Ray to any of us that have put on shows, to Arnold. It's your show. You pay the sanction. You put on what they want. Arnold doesn't even have half the categories, okay? Good for him. Listen, I don't preclude him from having to do it all because the argument is, well, the Olympia has them all and he only has whatever. Listen, if Linda wants to have an all women's show or if she wants to give $100,000 to the female bodybuilders or whatever, it's all up in her hands. If you
Who's
can
gonna
get the
argue?
business to support you, if you can get the girls to support you, I wish
Sure.
you the best. I wish any promoter can do anything that they see fit.
Let me give some free advice to Linda.
Free advices.
Linda is an 8-time Miss Olympia winner. She's an Arnold Classic Lifetime Achievement
Yeah.
Award recipient. She's a Hall of Fame bodybuilder out of Detroit, Michigan,
Yeah.
working for the Olympia platform and Jake Wood. If she wants the support of other people with regards to her show, she should call on the people that are doing what she does. She's a contest promoter in Atlanta. If I was Linda Murray, I would call every professional promoter personally to ask for support so she can put on the biggest women's bodybuilding show. If I was Linda, I would ask for my constituents, hey, I need $5,000 to go towards my show. If she called up 100 promoters, how much does that come up to, Bob? Because I don't know, I'm not good at math. $5,000 from 100 promoters. How much is that?
That's 500,000, isn't it?
Well, if it is, she's got her money to give away to one bodybuilder, the champion of the Linda Murray Classic. And you know what? The promoters would understand her cause. They would recognize her contributions, and they would give her flowers while she's still here with us. If she gets only half of that, Bob, how much money is that?
It's a lot of money.
It's 250,000. I'm
Yeah.
not a mathematician, but Linda would look genius because she can give that to one of her female bodybuilders and they would all love her and thank her for it. She can do it's not impossible to do what she thinks is impossible. She just needs the right what, Bob?
The
She
right
needs the
advice.
right ad. There you go.
Well, listen, that is great advice. Unfortunately, I think it's a very uphill battle. We've seen history, and unfortunately, history is repeating itself again. Very hard to, people are interested in what they're interested in. Okay, and in the bodybuilding world,
I would write her the $5,000 check to get the ball.
you go right ahead, and it's very nice of you. And listen, that is a very much an uphill battle. Again, the fan base just isn't there for the women, unfortunately. So you've got great intentions, brother, and I appreciate it. That's a tough road to hoe. Again, the girls, listen, you're lucky you even have a platform from the Jake Woods of the world, okay? Because it would have been dead and buried a long time ago. And some of these other divisions, again, only survive because they're paired with the men's divisions. Nothing against the girls. Nobody's saying you don't work hard or work hard as, but there is no sense of entitlement when it doesn't have an ROI. It's got to make business sense, people. So that said, that's going to bring this to a close, Shawn, because I got to get on the road, Jack. New York for me first, some family biz up there, and then I am on the road to Rimini, Italy. I'm going to go see the Panadas and be back at the office in the Rimini Wellness Festival, which is a huge event. We'll have Ronnie Coleman. We got Phil Heath. We got all kinds of superstars coming there.
And Lee Haney, I'll be here. I'll report to you next week about what happens here at the California Pro Am. Mind you, 1987, I won the amateurs. They'll have the amateurs too, the NPC, which spit out a lot of great champions. Troy Zucolato, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Tavita Halele, Garrett Downing, the late Ray McNeil,
Wow.
all former California champions. Richard Jones. We all came out of this. Tom Touchtone. John Arnita, Roy Liedlmeyer,
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Paris. Come on, man.
Wow.
It's the California weekend. Gabriel Gundy's putting that on right there at Disneyland.
1987, Shawn, you were 21-year old. You had a full head of hair, flat top in effect, and I miss those days. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of The Voice of Bodybuilding. I'm Bob Chick, and that's Shawn Ray.